it, Sarah. All day. Hell yeah.
Arm wrestling's about to take place.
Yeah. Good evening, YouTube world. I'm your host, Paul Italia. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. If you're feeling this content, smash that like button. With that being said, I'd like to introduce tonight's guest. He holds the title of King of Cali. This guy is larger than life, literally. Welcome, Derek Smith. What's up, brother?
What's going on, Paul, man? Thanks for having me on your channel. I appreciate that, man.
I wanted to start things off, and I wanted to just get your stats for all my subscribers out there. So I wanted to know your age, height, and weight.
I just turned 36, and I'm looking young, but I'm getting older. And then I'm 6'8", about 365, 360, somewhere right there.
Wow, big boy for real.
Yeah, trying to get big.
So, Derek, where did you grow up?
I'm from Southern California. I'm from a city called Yucaipa. It's in like San Bernardino County, kind of by Palm Springs, a little bit. Yeah, born and raised out here, and then I've traveled around a lot. I lived in Syracuse for a little bit, Florida for a little bit, Missouri for a little bit. So I kind of went around. I used to be a professional video game player, so kind of had me moving around a lot.
Wow, so you lived in New York for some time, huh?
Yeah, not a ton. I was probably up there for like, I don't know, 6 months, 7 months, something like that. Just gaming and hanging out with some friends of mine. But it was in Syracuse, so it wasn't like really in the you know, by Times Square or nothing like that. But my sister lives out there right now.
Very cool. Yeah, that's where I'm from, brother. I live in Queens, New York, and all. So
Okay,
hitting home right there with that.
yeah, that's where my sister lives. She lives in Queens somewhere. I don't know exactly sure where. So
Very cool. So, did you play any sports in high school?
yeah, I played basketball. When I started playing basketball my sophomore year in high school, it was the first time I ever picked up a ball. And then I get really obsessed on things. Like I got a tattoo on my arm that says "One Love" for like one. I get really focused on one thing. So I picked up basketball, and then by the time I was a senior, I was a leading scorer. Started in the county all-star game, the biggest county in the United States. Was getting looked at by a bunch of colleges and stuff like that for basketball. But I was 6'7", 215 when I graduated high school. So not 365.
Wow, bro, that's pretty impressive, man. And I'm assuming you were so good with basketball just with that height alone.
Yeah, the height played a factor for sure. I would only play with adults, like when I was like a sophomore. And so when you're at like public parks playing with the grown-ups who talk crap to you and call you, you know, a piece of crap, and you're so loppy, you can't. Then eventually, if you quit or you just grind. And so I grinded until I got good enough. So then when I go play in high school against like kids, it was weird because I'm used to playing against adults, like grown men throwing elbows in my faces. So now playing against these little high school kids, I care about them. It was easy. It was easy buckets there. So yeah.
What position did you play?
A lot of times I wasn't even the biggest guy on my team, but I played 5 a lot because I was so used to being physical and moving people around and throwing my weight around. I was good playing the center, but we actually had, I was 6'7" in high school. We had a 6'11" guy, a 7 foot, like another 6'7" guy. We had a huge high school team. But I played starting center, but sometimes I would play the power forward as well.
Oh my God, what is going on in SoCal, man? What's in the water or something? They grow giants down there?
Yeah, big ass dudes, man. Big ass dudes.
So after high school, did you go to college after that?
For 1 year, I messed around with grades like an idiot, and then I had to go to a junior college to qualify for a university. I flew up to Gonzaga, and I went to like a basketball camp up there and stuff, and that was like my dream school. But yeah, I had to go to a JC to qualify for university, and I had my pick of the litter for any JC. I had every letter from everywhere, and just so happens that the number 1 JC at the time was like down the street from my house. So I went down there, played for a year. I was a little ahead of myself. I thought I should be getting like more playing time and stuff as a freshman, and I figured I had the pick of all the colleges. So I got in a little argument with the coach. I ended up quitting, and I was like, I'll just get back. I'll go somewhere else next year. Every place wants me. And that summer, I started playing. Went back home, mom's house. I was playing video games for fun, and then I found online tournaments for video games, and I found out about in-person tournaments for video games, and then I just got hooked on video gaming and flying around the country playing video games.
Wow, that is an extreme difference. So going from a top basketball player, then getting into video games, and then going big time with that and flying around the country. Wow.
Yeah, every month, man, different sponsors, Verizon, Red Bull, a bunch of different sponsors throughout the years. I've been on USA Network and Spike TV and all this type of stuff for video games. And that actually is what segued and got me into arm wrestling. I went from there into arm wrestling. It's kind of really random, really random. So.
Wow, that is pretty interesting right there. So that leads me to the question, your hobbies growing up. Were you always into video games? Was that one of the main hobbies growing up?
I mean, I had a gaming system, but like any kid does. I mean, but I probably played it less than most people. It wasn't until like that summer after I was playing basketball, I was just because I'm really competitive. I like competing one-on-one against people. I like having my best against your best, and we see what happens, and so it wasn't really until that summer that I found out you could kind of do that in video games and really go out on a really competitive level. And it was new to me because you play sports, you grow up playing physical sports, and then suddenly you switch to professional video game playing. Imagine like switching to professional chess playing, where it's no longer about being physical or about being faster or stronger or anything like that. It's literally, it's all in here. Like everything's in here. Like if you want to push yourself to another level, you can't make your guy run any faster. All you can do is hold forward. You know what I mean? So you have to outthink everybody. You have to learn different levels in here and how to push yourself completely in here and not physically at all. So it was a really different way of pushing yourself and competing, which I like. Kind of showed me how to take things more serious, what to me is serious, what's not serious, it just all mentally. So it was kind of cool. But yeah, hobbies wise, I was a pretty normal kid. I mean, dirt biking, skateboarding, before I got too big for the skateboard and the dirt bikes, and then standard stuff, really nothing, not too nerdy.
How many years did you do the video gaming for?
Let's see. So that was when I was 18 to about 24, 25.
And was that financially successful for you?
It was enough for the time, but what happened was one of the reasons I was getting out of it was like I was cool and I was doing online video game lessons, charging $35 an hour for people who pay me online like this. I would meet up with them like on the video game on Halo, and I would teach them how to play just over the headset. And they would pay me $35 an hour. I did that for a few years, which was good money to pay the rent. So I would do that, crank out some lessons every day. Do 2 or 3 hours of lessons. I'd book solid. And then I'd be, okay, that's enough. This is boring. Just get off that, and just enough to kind of skate by or whatever. And then there'd be like the random winnings and stuff, but nothing balling out, nothing really to show for it. At the end of the 6-7 years, I didn't really have anything to show for it money wise. All I pretty much had was some friends, some connections, some networks. That's it. I mean, so that's why I was like, I kind of need to get out of this. Like I didn't continue to go to school. There's a lot of things I was lagging behind on because I pursued that. So I had a bunch of great memories. I learned a lot of things about competition and sponsors and flying and running teams and things like that, because I was the captain and creator of all my teams on that. But yeah, I mean, no, not a lot to show for it, to be honest. Just learned a lot, I guess.
Would you say that that video gaming background, would that help you out today with your strong social media presence?
Yeah, it definitely showed me that there's a different route. One of the first things I noticed when I got into arm wrestling is that how many of the guys are like blue collar construction worker guys who like when they see an opportunity, they just think, okay, like I got to save up this amount of money and do this. And then that's how it goes, right? Back and forth. You save up, you spend the money on the tournament, you go, maybe you win, $100. Usually you end up coming out of pocket no matter what. But I came from a background where for 6 years, I didn't pay for a single tournament. I was sponsored for everything by different sponsors almost every time. And I knew that there's money out there. Like it kind of tripped me out that so many arm wrestlers and stuff were just like, they didn't even look, it seemed like they didn't even think about that. They didn't even look at any other opportunity, other ways to go about things or see things in like a business perspective. And so I was so comfortable with that. I'm like, I know you can go down the street to mom and pop liquor store, 5 businesses, and a few of them will be like, yeah, put this on your shirt or this and that, or you can find ways to rep them. It's not hard at all. But yeah, it always tripped me out how arm wrestlers weren't really into that when I first got into it. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, paying your own way, and I totally get that at all. But I'm just saying there's other ways to have it be done while still helping out companies and or now the YouTube thing and whatnot. There's other ways to get things done for sure.
So I know you said that you found arm wrestling through gaming. How did that? You want to tell me about that story?
Yeah, I was at a national championship in Las Vegas one time, and I was known at the gaming tournament as still the biggest guy, right? I was generally bigger than the other guys. No muscle. I wasn't really lifting weights yet, but I got up to like 330 pounds of gaming fat. It was gross. Like no working out, it was real bad. And but yeah, some kids came and found me one day, and they're like, "Hey, Derek, there's this 15-year-old kid. We really want you to arm wrestle." And I was like, 24 some of the time. And I was like, 15-year-old kid. And I was like, okay. And I'm thinking, if they want to arm wrestle some 15-year-old kid, especially if he's small, he must know some crazy tricks. I'd heard there's some tricks in arm wrestling, but I'm thinking especially when I see the kid, because he's tiny, skinny little kid, I'm like, all right, he's gonna have some crazy tricks, but I'm so much bigger than him. There's no way I just don't overpower him and just do that. You know what I mean? And so I go, I remember there's a table, this kid sitting at this table, and there was a crowd around the kid just staring there. So and the kid's dad was taking bets in the crowd. And so I go arm wrestle the kid. I'm all right, ready, go. And he just shoulder rolls me and like flashes me. I'm like, okay, hold on. No. I do what normal people do. Like, oh no, you went first, use your body weight. Hold on, you can't go sideways like that. I'm making all the excuses. And I'm like, all right, do one more time. I can get this, guys. Ready to go. And he does it again. Right? He slams me. So then I start talking to the kid. Turns out his name is Ethan Fritchie. I don't know if you've ever heard of Ethan Fritchie, but Ethan Fritchie is on Game of Arms. He was the high school kid who climbed the rope with like one hand or two hands or whatever. And he was a
Cobra Rhodes protege.
Yeah. So Ethan he played a game called Gears of War, but he was on the number one team in the world at Gears of War, but he was also a professional arm wrestler at the time. And his dad was a professional arm wrestler. So he'd been arm wrestling his whole life. So anyway, he beat me, and I was just on the tail end of my little arm gaming career.
All right. So let's start off with how much did Ethan weigh when he was 15 years old?
He had to be like because he always competed anywhere between 155 to 175. So I guess he's around 160, 165 at the time.
And you were about 330 then?
Yeah, probably. I was probably over 300, probably 320, 315, somewhere in there. I bet you. Yeah.
So that must have been just shock to you.
Yeah,
You probably never experienced anything like that. What an ego, blow to the stomach.
I heard there's tricks to arm wrestling. I had no idea what it was. I heard something about a wrist or something. I didn't know. So yeah,
from that now, what went on? You went home from that match with Ethan. Did you have a team in the area? Like, how did you get about like finding a team and getting on a table and start training?
Well, right when I got home, like I said, I Googled it, couldn't find anything. And I made my roommates, they were big dudes. I made them arm wrestle me, and I didn't know what I was doing, and they didn't know what they were doing. And they got really bored of that real quick. And, but it was almost about a year until I trained for, 4 or 5 months, hardcore, what I thought was hardcore in my gym by myself, not knowing what I'm doing. And then eventually I kind of get out of it. So for like 5 more months, I'm like, I can't find anybody to arm wrestle with. I don't know what to do with this. I go back to another tournament just because it was a local one, and Ethan's there. I see Ethan again. I'm like, hey, remember me like a year ago? Like we arm wrestled? And he goes, yeah. And I tell him, dude, for a whole year, I've been obsessed with it. I don't know what I'm doing yet. And he goes, here, let me give you the websites and some phone numbers. This is Alan Fisher's phone number. These are the active websites. The UAL is just coming out. These are the active things you want to follow. I was like, okay, cool. So current websites, awesome. And and so after that, I hit up Alan. I went to, you remember the tournament where Travis is holding Richard Lucky's? He's like, stand up, biggin, stand up. So that's my first tournament I ever saw. I'm in the crowd watching. I didn't compete. And I'm just like in the background, like, oh my gosh. I don't know if you can even see me on any videos, but I remember just thinking Richard Lucky's is the biggest man I've ever seen. I like knew who Travis was. I was just a big, huge fan. I'm just in the crowd watching. And then like a month later, they had their first tournament, another tournament in Southern California called Backyard Brawl, where Travis and Devin had a match where they pulled up in like a Ferrari and a lifted truck. And they had this UAL match. Anyway, so that was my first time competing. And so I signed up there, met everybody, and then that's where I met Jamie Sheldon. And that's where Jamie took me to my first practice. So I never went to a practice or trained officially with anybody. I competed before I did any of that.
Let me ask you though. So after that, you had that first loss against Ethan. How long was it until after that you went and bought your own arm wrestling table?
I've never bought an arm wrestling table.
So where did you get on the first arm wrestling table after the loss of Ethan when you realized I need to get good at arm wrestling?
At that tournament. Everything else is just in a gym trying to do curls with rubber band or, whatever I could figure out. Because there was no information and no one was teaching me anything. So just like if you just tell a random guy on the street, hey, go train for arm wrestling, don't give him any information. That was me. Just like, all right, just curls and bench and I don't know, just trying to figure out what to do. Didn't know anything.
What year was this in?
So it's been about 11 years. So 11 or 12 years ago. So what's that?
About like 2011, 2012.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
So 2011, 2012, we don't have that much of a social media presence for arm wrestling, or we do?
Not at all. Gary Roberts was in full form on Arm TV. I didn't know about that though, because it was one of those things I didn't just find. So I didn't find out about that until me into the actual sport about a year, and then I started finding out about Arm TV. But besides that, there was legitimately 6 videos on YouTube. Like there was nothing. I just kept rewatching the same motivational videos of Travis and John and Devin and watching them just get their wins and stuff and just being a big fan.
So how does it go when you hit up Alan Fisher? What does that conversation look for the first time?
Well, I actually got a hold of Carolyn, his wife, who is amazing, the nicest lady you could ever meet. I call her at the house, and she answers right away. And I tell her, hi, my name's Derek. I'm new, and I want to get into this arm wrestling thing. And she says, "Oh, well, you're in luck. There's an event coming up." And she gives me all the details. She goes, "Be there," and then and go up to Alan. Alan will be waiting for you when you get there. So I go up to Alan at the tournament. Is when I first meet him, and I remember I'm like, "Alan, I signed up. Like, what do I do?" And he takes me over the match. The tournament's starting in 12 minutes, right? And he pulls me over to the side table, and he's like, "All right, you have a long arm. Let me teach you how to top roll." We have 12 minutes before the first match, and he's trying to teach me how to top roll in 12 minutes, right? And so I'm like taking this crash course. I'm like, and then you pull backwards? Like, what? Okay, I think I've seen that before. And I'm like trying to figure out how to do this top roll thing. And I go up to the first match, and I go against Bruce Wayne, which is John Grizzly from the movie Over the Top that eats the cigar and stuff. So he was my very first arm wrestling match ever on a real table. And I tried that, and he just destroys me. Bruce just destroys me. And then I'm like, man, I suck at this. And so I go up to Bruce. I remember he's sitting next to the bar with his cowboy hat on, and I walk into Bruce. I'm like, "Hey, man." And I was like, "Do you have any tips for me, Bruce? I don't. That was my first time ever arm wrestling." And he goes, "Oh, well," I told him, "Alan, try to teach me how to top roll." And he goes, "Well, if Alan never talked to you, what would you have done?" And I was like, "I probably would have just done that or something like that." And he goes, "Well, go do that." And I was like, "All right." So I go up there, and I beat Gary Roberts and a guy named Steve, and I beat 3 guys in a row, just doing that to everybody. And then I get to top 3, and I have Bruce again, and I try it, and I lose. But I got third. So I got third in amateur at my first event, just kind of pushing people's arms down, not really knowing what I was doing.
How many people were in your class, would you say, in that first event?
Oh, probably like 12 or so.
Wow. So that's pretty impressive, bro. Getting third in your first event. That's a feat in itself.
It was fun. Yeah, dude, it was a blast. But more so, that was just the beginnings. And I remember Devin was there, and I didn't even know who Devin was at that point. I knew he was a Canadian arm wrestler, but I thought Travis was the man. And Devin was already number 1 in the world at this time, right-handed. And I didn't know. He was like walking around the crowd, and Devin walks by me. I'm like, "Hey, Travis." I just scoop past Devin. "Hey, Travis, come here. Can I meet you?" And I'm talking to Travis, and I remember my dad was there with me because it was my first event. And my dad's like, "This is my boy, Travis. My boy says he's going to beat you." And I remember Travis looks at me, and he goes, "That's your boy right here? Man, he's 7 years too late. He ain't gonna touch me, man. This kid ain't ever gonna touch me." So Travis just starts with all this shit, and it was really funny. I remember saying that. But Travis got a lot done right now.
So back in 2011, 2012, so then is Travis the man in arm wrestling? Is he got the title of the number 1 guy?
I know Devin was number 1 right-handed. He hadn't taken the number 1 left-handed spot yet.
Not as far as the top arm wrestler, as far as the most known, the most popular guy.
Yeah, he was already full-fledged Travis, kind of on his way down a little bit from his peak, at that point for sure. But yeah, I mean, he was still beating up on Devin left-handed at that point. So yeah, Devin was still chasing him a little bit.
If you had to pick one arm wrestler at that time, they had to choose that kind of inspired you, who would that be?
Oh, for sure. My biggest goal when I first started was to beat Travis Bajent. It was to beat this cocky dude that's so cocky, talking crap to everybody. I wanted to beat him with his good hand, his left hand. That was my number 1 goal when I very first started. I just want to beat that guy. Legitimately, that was like the drive for everything. One day I want to crush that dude, talking all that crap, and just see the look on his face. And it's funny because I've heard 1,000 people say the same goal, And but yeah, that was definitely the first thing that drove me to the sport in terms of who I want to beat. Now, Devin was more the guy like, oh, I want to be like that guy, but I want to beat Travis, right? So it was, it was kind of funny.
Well, I got to tell you, Derek, we have something in common there because I remember the story when Beauty and the Beast with Gary Roberts and Travis first started. It's about 2 years ago when I just got into the game, and Gary was giving the story about you. He was telling him about, did Derek Smith ever get up to that level that he could beat you? And Travis, of course, talking all the crap. Hell no, he'll never do that, whatever. Well, later in the episode, they bring me up. It's the first time that I'm mentioned or whatever. And Travis tells the story about how he met this new guy, Paul Italia, and he's coming in, making waves in the arm wrestling world. And he goes, this guy hits me up and he tells me he's going to beat me within a year or two. So we had the kind of same beginning with that obsessive, like we got to compete with everything and all. Yeah. So, we got something similar there with that.
You see, Travis, whether he wants to or not, he's inspiring people, to get in here and join the sport.
Oh, yeah. So let's just, did you get to see last weekend's match with Travis Bajent versus Brandon El Cesar, left hand?
Yeah.
What's your reaction to that?
So I've gone over it a couple times. One, before, I'm a big believer, no matter what, in if you put your elbow down on an arm wrestling table, then you reap what you sow. I don't give all excuses. Everything's out the window. I don't really care about anything that's said before or after. If you had a real excuse, don't put your elbow down. The moment you put that down, you're in it. You walked up into the cage, you closed the door, you said, let's get it. So I don't care if Travis is trained. I don't care if he had a beer gut. I don't care about anything. They had a match. Travis dropped. He lost to Brandon Cesor. All kudos to Brandon Cesor for taking that win 100%. Now, outside of that, there's a bunch of weird things, ways people look at it. Was that Travis? Will there ever be a Travis, the old Travis, like this and that? But in context of the actual match, it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? Like, he put his elbow down, he tried, and he lost to Brandon Cesor. So that is what it is. But I mean, do I think that if Travis was full form, old Travis, like, would have been different? Yeah, probably. But that has nothing to do with what actually happened last week, right? So I give all kudos to Brandon Cesor for doing what he did. That's really impressive, man. So
now, do you see Travis ever going and taking this? Does he have one more comeback in him, or do you think his time has come and passed?
I think he does. If he wanted, but I think that window's closing, because for him, if we'll say his comeback, we'll say it's Levon. We'll just say the top, right? Because Travis is a all or nothing type usually. So we'll say it's Levon. For him to reach that level, the window of how life altering many changes you'd have to make to get to that level, it's going to get harder and harder to do. So I think it's still possible, but for Travis, I mean, as he always says, the money would have to be right, and for that kind of change, it'd have to be like a 6-digit purse or something like that. I feel for him to take off all the time he would need, take the time away from his family, really grind for it. I don't know. I feel like it would be something that the circumstances would have to be so perfect for Travis to, I think, really attempt that again, that I don't know if he will. Because he can, I just don't know if he will, in my opinion.
Back at it, and I kind of like stepped back. I said, you know what? I don't want to be selfish anymore and just care about Travis and making this return after seeing of how he is putting so much time and focus into his kids and really giving them and being the best father that he could be. And that kind of impressed me in itself. So I said, you know what? I like what he's doing, and I like that he's putting all this. He had his time. He did his thing. He was the GOAT. He had the best left hand on the planet at one time. So, I'm going to fall back now. I'm not going to push on him anymore. I came to terms with it in my own head. I don't know. I'm not speaking for him. I don't know if he is still on this comeback. I know he's got that big match set up in June with Cody Merritt and all. But I'm going to definitely fall back a little, because I'm very impressed at him as a man and just taking care of his responsibilities as a father.
No, his kids are killing him, man. And Travis is a great dad. I mean, if you at the moment you have 10 minutes alone with Travis or talk to him, you realize how much he's about his kids. Like, that's his whole thing. And that's fantastic. I mean, as a dad myself, like, I have no higher respect for anybody than a good father, so.
Hell yeah. So I just wanted to get back to our original background talk and all. And I just wanted to kind of find out from you, with you being so tall, being 6'8" and all, I've heard both sides. I've heard that the height could work against you being so tall. How do you feel? Has it hurt you or helped you being 6'8" on the arm wrestling table?
It was just like, I never really sat and dwelled on it because I can't change it. You know what I mean? So it was just a series of hurdles, and some of them might have been height, had something to do with my height or arm length and stuff like that, and some of them might not have. But in order for me to do certain things, I have to focus on some different things. Like, so instead of me trying to pull my elbow back and get tight, then my arm's still way out here, I have to focus on height, right? So height and keeping my arm tight and vertical, or just some smaller things that I have to worry about in my head when I arm wrestle more so than someone with a smaller forearm. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like me standing at the table and stuff, it's all I know. And I'm really kind of my comfortable positions where how far like my legs be spread out, so where gets me down just enough. And I just dialed in terms of like what I'm comfortable with. But yeah, I don't think I've ever been in a match or loss and be like, oh man, my arm length and my height, it's just kind of work with what I got, I guess, and try to get strong at it.
That makes sense. And the reason why I said that is just like watching you come up to the table. I mean, you literally, it looks like it's up to like your quads. It looks like you kind of like bend down at least a foot to get down to even get your hip up against it. So that's why I brought that up.
A lot of the practice videos people see me, I do that, or I'll just lean over the table kind of, because I like to leave my arm out to do a lot of the work, especially at practice, to make it a little bit harder on myself. rather than trying to recruit all my big muscles as much. I like to just leave my arm dangling out there and just let my wrist do all the work, or my bicep or whatever. So it gets more isolated, at practice. Then if you see me actually stand up to the table, then oh, wow, okay, that guy, Derek's that tired, that guy's that strong. Okay, it's time to take it serious, where I start recruiting my chest and my shoulders a lot more and stuff like that.